What's going on, everybody? This is Living in Arizona Now, coming to you from here in the Philippines, actually. But I saw some news articles about how Arizona, again in 2024, just broke the record for the hottest months or hottest summer on record. That includes 2023 also being the hottest summer on record. And we saw that, leading up to from 2018 all the way on. By the way, let me know how the connection and signal is. If you guys can let me know if you guys can see me and hear me, because there's kind of an internet issue here at this hotel. Not sure if it's coming in clear or what, but oh, Victor says he's got kidney stones and a back burner. Wow. Sorry to hear that, man. Wow. Okay. And Gargano says, considering a move to Phoenix, anyone have leads on how to find the best job there? Um, so yeah, let me know. Can you guys hear me or see me? Smash up the likes if you can. So I'm going to give you guys some information here about the history. The first thing that comes up when people hear this is they say, uh, "Oh, enough of that climate change stuff." Well, I mean, if straight data uh, upsets you, then it is what it is. And I'm not one of those people that believe that you can throw tax dollars at the sun and change the weather. So trust me, I'm not one of those types of people. It's just, I mean, if you talk to any Arizona locals, they'll tell you it just keeps getting hotter and hotter. I mean, we had the hottest day in Phoenix in what, 1992, I believe, or was it 1991? It was 122 degrees. So we had some hot temperatures in the 90s as well, but this summer was just one for the record books. I've said this time and again. In the 90s, we used to get a lot of monsoons. I mean, Arizona was known for monsoons pretty much every evening from probably about the 4th of July until the end of August. It seems like we're getting more monsoons than we used to get later into September. Like you typically didn't used to get like hurricane, tropical storm remnants from the Baja like we've been getting recently. People say, we're in an El Nino or a La Nina. People go back and forth with all that. But it's really hard to say exactly what the weather phenomena is, but we do know that 2023 was hot and 2024 was hot, but we also know that Phoenix is always hot. Now they say that if you in Arizona, Phoenix isn't even the hottest place in Arizona. I believe Bullhead City, Lake Havasu City, and Yuma get even hotter than Phoenix, but they say the hottest place in the country is Needles, which is right on the Arizona California border. So no matter how you hack it, Arizona's got to be the hottest state in the country. Death Valley, obviously, being the hottest place in the country, that's up in Mojave, California. Um, Water Tiger says, we had a few monsoons this summer. I missed them. Yeah, I mean, monsoons, they used to be a lot more common and they used to come in a lot more frequently to Phoenix. Around Arizona, you'll still see them. I mean, we've seen that across Arizona and the southern Arizona, just on the outside of Tucson. They still get those beautiful storm clouds that come rolling over, but you just don't get those in Phoenix. And some people say it's because of the concrete radiation that comes up from all that concrete and asphalt. And that's the thing that's the biggest concern about Arizona that keeps on. Phoenix keeps growing. Everyone always talks about if we have enough water, but can we actually survive getting even hotter than we can? Can the plants survive it? You have saguaro cactuses. They cannot survive like they used to. I mean, a lot of the saguaro cactuses around Phoenix are wilting. I mean, they're not in the best shape. You can still find healthy saguaro cactuses if you go up into the chaparral or if you go up above into the higher deserts, but if you are actually in the Phoenix Valley area where the saguaros used to live quite healthy, they're actually wilting and they don't look very healthy. And some people say because the heat shield off the ground is reflecting up against the saguaro and it's burning it. That's what my dad's friend said. That's what he thinks it is. Um, let's see here. Let's see. He says the temp taken at the airport skews things. We suffer from a heat dome. Yeah, it is a heat dome. I mean, yeah, you get a temperature reading at Sky Harbor Airport. It's going to be about 10 degrees hotter than, like, say, Scottsdale or something like that. You go in your backyard in Scottsdale it won't say 114. It might say, I don't know, 108. It just depends. I mean, but Scottsdale's up higher elevation. I mean, even in the wintertime, it seems like Scottsdale lately has been getting at least one snow per year. That's another thing I don't remember in the 90s or in the 80s. I don't remember getting many snows. I mean, we would get 2 or 3 maybe in a span of 10 years, but it seems like every year for the last few years, around like January or February, we get like a snowstorm. We've even done some videos on this channel about the snow that we've seen in North Scottsdale, up there by Desert Mountain, but you don't quite get it down in the valley in Phoenix. I don't think someone can quote me on this. I think maybe one time in history did they ever get snow flurries in downtown Phoenix, and I think I'm pretty sure we've seen snow on South Mountain, but it's not very common. But you guys can let me know if I'm wrong on that. Water Tiger says, I'm in Fountain Hills and I'm seeing lightning. Yeah, how many monsoons did you count this summer, would you say? 10, 12? I know we got a lot of dust storms, but we'll see. Arizona way too hot. We moved away. Yeah, I mean, but you have to realize Arizona is a lot different, a lot more than just Phoenix. Phoenix is, in the summertime, 5 to 10 degrees hotter than Tucson. If you're someone living up in Flagstaff, you won't be in the hundreds. Flagstaff does not get into the hundreds. Prescott, maybe once or twice, maybe a few times per year, does it get to 100. Sedona maybe gets close to 100 degrees. So it just depends on where you're living in Phoenix or in Arizona. If you're living in Phoenix, yeah, it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter, and that's because the concrete jungle, the asphalt radiates heat for sure. Gio says, I moved to the south to the first to San Antonio, then to Phoenix due to work, but 2023 was enough for me. I moved back to the east. North Carolina has been good so far. Yeah, I was just in North Carolina, actually, in Charlotte. I went to they have the area that I like over there is the that Rapids Park. It's like Whitewater Rapids. It's a really great park. I made a video of things to do in Charlotte, and it doesn't have a lot of things to do, actually. It seems like most of the things to do in Charlotte are outside of Charlotte. Obviously, there's a lot to do outside of Charlotte, including coastal Carolina. Then you've got going towards Ash Fork, towards Tennessee. You got the Smoky Mountains, all that. Simply Lovey says, I'm moving back to Florida within the next 2 years. I've had it with this heat. Well, I would say Florida was pretty hot too. I mean, when I was in Miami and even in September, I was like, that's really hot. And it's super hot with the humidity. So I wouldn't say that Florida would be the place to go to get away from the heat. I mean, that's kind of funny that you would assume that Florida is going to be the place to go to get away from the hot summers, because for a lot of people that I've talked to said that Miami is even hotter than Phoenix if you combine humidity and heat. Now, Phoenix has that dry heat. Miami has that really moist heat. Like, for example, here in the Philippines, where I'm at now, or in Southeast Asia, they've been dealing with a lot of typhoons. But when they don't have typhoon season, it's been getting hotter here. I mean, I don't know exactly what's causing the global warming, if you want to call it that, where things are getting warmer. But the Earth goes in and out of cycles. We've seen that through history with the Ice Age. We went into an ice age. We came out of an ice age. The Earth had to melt. The Earth had to warm in order for the ice to melt to go out of the ice age, right? And then we went back into a mini ice age, and then we came out of the ice age. I mean, even if you look at places like Babylon or Mesopotamia or Egypt, those places weren't always barren deserts. I mean, so it had to have gotten hotter there. And then places like Russia, Siberia, northern Canada, those become more habitable places than before, whereas places around the deserts like Phoenix get hotter almost to a point where it's uninhabitable land. I mean, that's kind of what's happening with Phoenix. And even if you talk about the tectonic plates, if you go to a place like Petrified Forest in Arizona, I don't know if you guys have been to the Painted Desert or Petrified Forest, right there, if you go there, you're like, okay, this is totally a desert. There's nothing even grows out here except for a couple shrubs. But this used to be a forest, and it's petrified. It's fossilized forest, right? And then you start reading the signs, and you read up on those signs. They say that this area of Arizona actually used to be down by where Costa Rica is. So it used to be like a swamp, a lush jungle, and that part of land used to be all the way down by Costa Rica's what is that, latitude and longitude. So I mean, there's a lot of things to consider when you're talking about what's causing the Earth to warm, and But would I say that raising taxes is the way to is the way to cool the planet? I'm not a big fan of that idea. Is anyone a fan of that? I mean, even if you look at the conversation going on around the country about the politics or whatever, there's still this conversation about wanting to raise taxes. And I was reading some data on this, and people were saying, okay, so if you include property tax, sales tax, capital gains tax, state tax, your federal income tax, gas tax, cell phone tax, all these different taxes, you're kind of like, how much more taxes do we really need to pay? And then the conversation goes to the politics of the country, and they're like talking about raising taxes again. If anything, the conversation for who we should be looking for in the candidates is, how do we bring taxes down? Because we find out that we're sending trillions of dollars to others, or billions of dollars. I'm sorry, not trillions, but billions of dollars to other countries. And I don't think many of you guys have a say in that. That's taxation without representation, right? So I'm just confused why there's actually people in the country saying, yeah, raise the taxes, because at the end of the day, guess who doesn't pay the taxes? The rich. You know why? Because they just go overseas. How do I know this? Because in the Caribbean, there's places like St. Bart's, the Grand Cayman Islands, or the Cayman Islands, British Virgin Islands, and these are billionaires, and you find out they don't even pay taxes at all. And that's not to mention Monaco and all these other places. And so there's always this conversation about tax the rich, raise the taxes. But guess who gets stuck with it? You and I. So I have no idea why there's people. I mean, if there's someone in this chat right now who feels like the average person needs to be paying more taxes, please try to justify that right now, because I'm confused. I am really confused about that. So when they say, oh, pay more taxes to save the environment, to protect the environment, that's just a way to just get more tax revenue out of you, because you're not going to be able to change the climate with that. I mean, it's not like you can go pay the sun and be like, hey, Mr. Sun, can you cool it down for a little bit? And here's a couple billion. Come on. Potato Head says, they say you'll own nothing and be happy. It's getting there. I don't know, man. I mean, I don't know. Manny says, would you say that the weather in Cebu area better than in Florence, Arizona right now? Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of green trees over here. So, wow, Philippines is an interesting place. It can get really hot in Manila. When you come to the Philippines, the first thing you do when you get to Manila is leave Manila. So Cebu is probably the second or third largest metro area in Cebu City, and then I think Davao is number 2. So Cebu City is number 3. I would not necessarily recommend living in Cebu, but the provinces, some of these islands are just spectacular. For those of you who follow Island Hopper TV, I've made a couple videos of the Philippines here recently on the Island Hopper TV highlights channel. I never understood how that's legal, like how these billionaires can use tax shelters and it's legal. Mind-boggling. Yeah, I mean, Monaco is a total tax haven. It's nothing but billionaires, and no one pays taxes there. They have a couple of these tax havens all across Europe. They have them in the Caribbean. And it's like a good old boys club too. You can only, like, literally to live there, you have to be like a high net worth individual. I was just like, I mean, so this whole idea that tax the rich, it's like the rich aren't going to pay taxes anyway. I mean, they're not going to be able to get them because they just use those loopholes. They literally use the loopholes. SGT point blank says, that's a matter of opinion. You're going to have to come here and find out for yourself, right? Schmonsequences says, nobody's asking to raise taxes in lower class people. They say that they're not looking to raise taxes. But here's the thing: they should be talking about lowering taxes, especially if they're just going to do out of control spending, sending your money overseas. A lot of people already feel like they're paying way too much in taxes. And they always say, "Oh, well, we're not looking to raise the taxes of the lower and middle income people." But I talked to a person that they literally made $17,000 like last year, and they paid the IRS at the end of the year like 2,500. And I was like, does the IRS really need that money? Does the IRS really need $2,500 from you? You made $17,500, and they need you at the end of the year to give them pretty much. If you had any money saved, it's going straight to them. It's like, or they had to go in debt. I didn't ask them how they paid it. I just know that they were like not very happy with the fact that the IRS needed that kind of money because they were it was like a contractor. They were like just an independent contractor kind of thing. So I would say that and then you hear that there's billionaires out there who didn't even pay a single penny. I would say, I mean, how do you justify that? How do you justify that? You can't. Do you think it would make sense to raise Arizona state taxes on utilities or alcohol and other? Well, I was researching this subject. So, there's one presidential candidate out there who keeps talking about tariffs, and prior to 1913, the United States used tariffs to collect tax revenue because there was no such thing as income tax. So tariffs were how they collected income revenue. So I would say, if countries like China want to sell their products to Americans, put the tariff. And China is a great example of this because one thing that I've discovered about going around Asia in particular, or going around the world, is China will sell you anything. They will sell you anything. They will provide you any service, but will they buy from you? So that's not a fair trade. They will buy. They will sell, but they won't buy. The only things they've been known to buy throughout history, for example, is silver or gold. But when it comes to general commodities, they would rather produce it and sell it to their own people and sell you the things. So that's been their business model, and it's been very successful. Whereas the United States has kind of just become a consumer country. So we'd rather consume. And basically, our biggest asset that we have right now, and a lot of people disagree with this or they don't like to have this conversation, but it's our currency. That's like our greatest strength is our currency, the U.S. dollar. If that ever became devalued, I don't really see how we're in a position of strength. I mean, what do we produce more efficiently or better than, say, China or other countries? We've offshored most of our. We've offshored. What's something we haven't offshored? I mean, even Apple is offshore. I guess the internet, the cloud, the AI stuff. Maybe we still have offices in Silicon Valley where they have workers coming into the office. But as far as hardware, software, products, most of it is manufactured overseas. Even our automobiles, what GM, Ford, American companies, where do they manufacture their vehicles? A lot of it's overseas. So I mean, people like to get into these conversations about this stuff, but it's a problem. How much does a single family home cost in the Philippines? Can Americans buy property there? You can buy if you have. So you have to have a wife or a significant other, a husband or a wife, or a business partner if you can trust them as a business partner. But you cannot outright buy. This is one of the things. You can be a Filipino, come to America and become a Filipino American. You can be a Chinese person, come to America and become a Chinese American, but you cannot become an American Chinese. You cannot become an American Filipino. Meaning, if you were born in America, you can't move to these countries and become a citizen like that. Whereas the United States, yeah, we have strict immigration laws, but we still let people from all over the world have a path to citizenship. That doesn't exist in these other countries. And it is what it is. I mean, I'm not knocking it. I'm not saying anything wrong with it. I'm just saying that when you're asking that question, that's the best explanation that I can give you. Jeff, if you could only choose one place to live in Arizona, where would it be? Hmm. Oh, man, that's a tough one. I mean, I've probably See, for me, you'd have to say that if I was done traveling, and didn't need airports, right? I would probably look towards Southern Arizona. I would look towards the area around like Tubac. I'd probably aim for Tubac, that area. But assuming it doesn't get overpopulated or overdeveloped, because if that happens, then the appeal goes away. Um, the area around Oracle is peaceful and nice. Uh, there's some areas around Verde Valley. I mean, I'm just kind of spitballing off the top. I mean, I would have to look. It would just depend on the deal. Like, am I able to get the deal that I'm looking for? Thanks to the 50 people who smashed up the likes. If you guys keep going, I will. Or if you guys hit the likes, I'll keep going. Water Tiger says, hit the like if you haven't. Thank you, Water Tiger. Nick says silver is a very valuable and still pretty cheap. Just saying, yeah. I mean, I think silver's at like $30 an ounce. Gold's at like 1,500. Maybe like a year or two ago, silver was around like $15 for a troy ounce, $16 for a troy ounce. So it's basically doubled in value. Gold was around like 1,800. Now that it's sitting around like 2,500. I don't know the exact numbers. I don't like hawk precious metals prices, but that's basically, kind of what my last insights told me. And I would say that so silver doubled in value. And at one point in time, actually, and I was studying the opium wars and the era around like the 1700s, 1800s in Asia here, because as you guys know, the British, the Dutch, the Spanish colonized most of this area, also some of the French, Portuguese as well. And I've kind of studied these histories a lot more, being that I'm here and I go to the museums and I see things and I read things, and then I go on YouTube and I watch like an hour-long documentary in the evening time. But at one point in time, I want to say in the 17 or 1800s, silver was more valuable than gold. So if you're an investor and you're looking at whether you should buy silver or gold, we have two bits of information, or three bits of information to analyze with that. One, silver just recently doubled in price, and I'm not like selling silver or anything like that. Although I could. I mean, I guess if someone wanted me to talk about silver and gold, because I've bought silver and gold, I gave it to my mom. My mom holds on to it for me because I'm traveling, but she's got it, and she's the custodian of it. um, but okay, so it doubled in price here recently in the last year or two. And then at one point in time, it was more valuable than gold. And then the third thing would be, I mean, to buy one gold coin is a lot harder to buy one gold coin than it is to buy a silver coin. I mean, for $30, you could get a gold or silver coin. For like $1,500, you could get a gold coin. I guess you could get smaller coins if you wanted. I mean, but who wants a small coin? Like, here's a coin. Imagine this being a fully gold coin, right? You're basically just buying it for, to have physical currency on you. But those three reasons right there, I would say, is why gold or silver just seems like a better purchase. And there's some places out there. I mean, some people just mine for silver. I mean, the U.S. or Tombstone, Arizona, used to be a silver mine. That was what really founded Tombstone. If you turn the camera around, there's a bunch of folding chairs and stuffed animals and dolls set up for the audience. Here, I'll turn the camera around because I'm sure you want to know. That's the view of Cebu City. But that was funny. I bought a house in Apache Junction. I love it there. Janice says demand is lowering now, so goes everything. This conversation about inflation coming down. There's always this conversation about how inflation is coming down, like as we go into the election. It's like, well, yeah. I mean, if inflation didn't go so high up for the first 3 years of the last administration, we wouldn't be coming down. I mean, if it stayed the same, we would probably be, somewhere around equal or up a little bit. But it went so high up over the last 3 years. Is there anyone in the chat who wants to say that we didn't experience a level of inflation the last 3 to 4 years? Is there anyone? I mean, there's no one who could say that because the data would tell you otherwise, right? So, um, yeah, Schmonsequetza said it exactly. Inflation coming down doesn't eliminate the inflation that already occurred. I mean, you could see inflation all over the place. I mean, here in the Philippines, I don't see inflation in the provinces. I mean, it's still the same prices. I don't know how they do that because they're always complaining about the price of gas. Like gas universally across the world went up, but here in the Philippines, they still charge like 100 pesos to go. Like yesterday, I went, maybe 2 kilometers, and it cost me in a taxi. I think they charged me 50 pesos, which is under $1. Like, you want to save money? Come over here to the Philippines. Seriously. I mean, if I took that same taxi or an Uber ride in, say, Phoenix to go that same amount of distance, 2 kilometers, almost a mile, or maybe over like about a mile, that would cost me probably at least $7 to $10. So here it cost me less than $1. I take tuk-tuk rides, motorbikes. I mean, even in Indonesia, I mean, going on a 10-minute motorbike ride from one side of Bali to the other costs you like less than $1. It's quite amazing. Serious questions. Do they eat cat there? No. I mean, they do have a lot of stray dogs, and I'm like, why do you guys have so many stray dogs? Like, why? Because there's like here in the Philippines, they have a thing with animal bite clinics. Like, you'll go to a place and it'll say animal bite clinic right here, or to report an animal bite, go over here because of rabies. And so it's a big problem. And I think maybe 500 to 1,000 people die every year of rabies. It's a terrible way to go out, and a lot of times they're kids. And if you read the stories, like little Miguel, he got scratched by a puppy, and he didn't tell his mom. And then 8 weeks later, he developed symptoms, wheezing and coughing, and then he passed away from the bite or from the scratch. And you would think that, like, if a little kid passes away and you're like, hey, there's a bunch of stray dogs around here who could potentially have rabies. I mean, but I guess when I was doing some research, some people said that it's like a backup food plan, stray dogs in a worst case scenario. I don't think that's true though, but that's what someone speculated. And when I say things like that, I don't want to say too much of that because people take that out of context to say, oh, he's saying they still eat dogs and all that. No, I'm just saying that that's one of the things I heard. They eat dogs in Springfield now. I wish the video was fake. Where'd you see this? It's Nick in Springfield. I don't think they eat dogs in Springfield. I don't know. Let's see here. Do you see inflation plateauing for the foreseeable future? Yeah, I don't think it can go any higher. I don't think Arizona home prices can go any higher. Arizona home prices are through the roof. Arizona is not Hawaii. Arizona home prices do not need to be as high as they are. Rental prices don't need to be as high as they are. What is the justification for a 3-bedroom condo or a 2-bedroom apartment in North Phoenix going for $2,500 a month? What is the justification for that? The apartment unit itself, yeah, it has maybe new appliances, but it's for the most part made of like cheap rinky-dink drywall, cheap plastics, synthetic, floors, vinyl floors, whatever it is, polyurethane. Cheap products for $2,500 a month. I mean, no, in Phoenix, I mean, you can't even go outside. You can't even go outside and walk around because it's either too hot or they don't even have proper sidewalks outside of the actual apartment complex. So, like, when I lived in an apartment complex or a condominium complex or whatever they're called, yeah, they say it, master plan community, modern living, all this and that. Yeah, you're confined to it's like a prison. You're like inside the gates, because the second you go outside the gates, they'll say like, this is city land. You can't walk over here. And so they don't have a park there. You can't cross the road because cars are going like 65, 70 miles an hour to get across the road. You can't go under the road because they haven't built a tunnel. You can't go over the overpass. You go to the other side where they might have a park. So it's like you can't even cross the road. So what are you paying for solitary confinement, for house arrest? Seriously. Okay, so I got to drive my car around. You know, you're inside your house. You can't really hang out inside those small apartments. You get cabin fever inside those cardboard homes. It's like staying in one of these hotels. Like I can stay in this hotel for maybe 2 or 3 days, but after 2 or 3 days, just working in here or hanging out in here, I've either got to go out in town and do my filming and do my working and do my sightseeing and exploring and all this stuff, whatever it is that I'm doing. But if I stay in here for like 2 days straight, because right now they got a typhoon, it's typhoon season, so they got a typhoon. I have to change, otherwise I'll get cabin fever in here. Like I'll start getting real like irritated. I mean, I've done it for like as much as like 7 days in a place, and it starts to get real annoying. And I mean, this is the size of an apartment. This is like the size of a studio apartment so I don't know how they could say in Phoenix that those 2 bedroom apartments are $2,500. It has to go back down to where it really honestly belongs around like 18 or 1900. And I think it has come down. I mean, I was reading here recently that home prices are I think they're down like 1.9% or 2.2% from this time last year. So I mean, that you want to talk about leveling off inflation, that is leveling off. I mean, if it's only down 2%, that's for the most part stable. It's not like a sell off, and it's definitely not a rise. It's Nick says $1,200. That's cute. Denver, nothing under 1,600 for rent. New Jersey, don't think you can buy anything under 400K or close to that. Driving and delivering. In that case, I'm moving to Phoenix. Denver is at least 25% higher apartments. I'm not kidding. Nothing under $1,200. That's a rundown, rough part of town apartment. That's how it is in Phoenix. I mean, you can maybe find something under $1,000 a month and say like the most dangerous area of West Phoenix. They're around like I-17 and I don't know, Indian School or Thomas. And over there, you know, you're going to get, if you have anything of value at some point in time, you're there for a year. Someone's going to come up and try and take your stuff. Someone in a year. That's just a dangerous part of town. It's no way to live. It's no way to live. So, yeah, you might be saving money, but you're going to be looking over your back all the time, hearing sirens all the time. Jeff, are you doing a plan B, C, D as far as resident citizen options concerned? Firefly asks. That's a good question. You know, I'm always open minded. I'm definitely in observation mode. I'm more of a in observation mode. I think the world is changing so fast. I think things around us are moving very quickly. It's really hard to know what's going on in the short term or the long term with all the instability. So right now I'm just doing data collection. Also, you know, in a lot of the foreign countries, they're growing a disdain for foreigners. I mean, Indonesia, we're seeing it in Bali, we're seeing it in other places where foreigners aren't as welcome. You know, foreigners, Americans or tourists, they always go to these places. In particular, Americans. We like to travel places and assume they want our money, right? I see this often. I've heard this in airports and other places. For example, in Aruba, you know, this lady, she flew in on American Airlines to Aruba, and I was just looking for my suitcase, and she was looking for her suit, or she was complaining because her suitcase, nice little purple blue whatever suitcase, had a little dink in it, just on the top on the side, and she was making a big fuss about it, saying, "Oh, I'm gonna get you guys. Oh, this is terrible." And they were basically like, there's nothing we can do about it, ma'am. And she was like, "Oh, you don't want me to come here and travel, do you? You don't want me to come here and spend my money?" And they were like, "I don't care, ma'am," or something like that. And she was like, "I'll never be back to Aruba again." I use that as an example because that's like in my mind the classic mentality of us Americans when we travel. We always think that everyone wants us. And yeah, Americans do have a pretty good rapport. Like we're fairly liked. I mean, we're pretty good travelers from what I've observed. Are this handful of people who think that because they've got American money that they're special, and that they're in demand. But that's going away. There's, especially as the rest of the world's rising in income. Maybe you're not seeing it in Philippines as much, but you'll see it in Singapore or China or Japan, Korea. I mean, they basically don't need American tourists. They don't need tourists at all. Actually, like many of these countries, if you look at their GDP by tourism, you'll know who's dependent on tourists and who's not. Indonesia doesn't need tourists. I mean, they're like the 15th wealthiest country in the world, and I think like maybe less than 5% of their entire economy, and that includes Bali, is dependent upon tourists, and it might even be lower than that because they've got a lot of mines. Like Freeport McMoran has huge mines in Irian Jaya. They've got like seed oils, coconut oil, palm oil. They got a bunch of different natural resources in Indonesia, but yeah, so you have to take that into consideration. Even in, say, Costa Rica, which is a place that I would want to live, but that's changing where they call it gentrification, where a bunch of foreigners or gringos are moving down there. They're raising the cost of living, and the locals are kind of like getting to a point where they're like, "Get out of my country, gringo." It's true. It's true. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that happens. So, I mean, I have to pay attention to that too. Like, how much longer will the locals tolerate it? I mean, you see this everywhere, even in Phoenix, even in Arizona. Like, how much more of the Californians or out of towners or out of staters moving in before there's a mutiny or a rising? I'm not saying that would happen in the US, but you'll feel it more in other countries. Kind of like how the US feels about immigration into their country. You see that in other places. So I would say that if I was to do that, of course, consider living long term in a place, I would go to a place where they probably don't have a lot of foreign expats, maybe a small population of expats or immigrants, whatever you want to call us. But because of that, there would still be low cost of living. You could still live very affordably. I just don't see how you can live very affordably anywhere in the United States. Like I talk to a lot of Americans who live in Thailand and in Philippines and Vietnam. Vietnam's not a good place for Americans, actually, for obvious reasons. But there's this whole thing out there where it's like Vietnam's the cheapest country in the world to live, the most affordable, and this and that. Well, they still don't like Americans. Yeah, maybe for Aussies, maybe for Brits, they have it good. If you're an American, you go there, there's still a chip on the shoulder, really. And I've been there twice. Wait, twice? Yeah, I've been there twice. Um, Firefly says, I'm opting in for the Discover Thailand visa 5-year. Yeah, I've thought about doing that. You have to have like a certain amount of income in order to qualify for that. Thank you to everyone who smashed up the likes, by the way. SMG says, Jeff, have you ever felt unwelcome or unsafe anywhere you've traveled recently? Oh, man, recently? No, not me in particular, but I know it exists. I would say maybe for me, it's I have so much experience with travel to where it's kind of like I just get in lockstep with everything, and that's not because I'm boasting or trying to feel special. It's just if once you know how to function or you know how to travel, you know how to let those things kind of they're there, but they don't come into your mind or affect you. Japan seems cool and cheap with American dollars. No, Japan is not cheap. Yeah, the US dollar trades really good against the yen, but Japan is still one of the most expensive. I mean, if I wanted to stay, like right now I'm staying at this Holiday Inn here in Cebu City. It cost, I want to say, like less than $100 to stay here, and it's a nice hotel. I mean, this hotel in downtown Phoenix would probably go for a lot. Anywhere in America would go for, I don't know. I mean, it's a new modern hotel. It could easily go for a lot of money, maybe $150 to $200. But yeah, I mean, Japan, this same hotel would go for like $200, $300. You couldn't even find it for cheaper than that. So yeah, the U.S. dollar trades really good against the Japanese yen, but Japan is very expensive. Japan and Singapore are extremely expensive, actually. Was I ever married? No, I never got married. People always wonder about that with me, and they always ask. And of course, I had girlfriends and stuff, and there was times where I was getting close when I was in the Navy. But it was funny. I always had people say, "Don't get married, don't get married," and I'd be like, "Why?" And these were married people. They'd be like, "You'll be a lot happier if you don't." It was crazy. Um, how's Tucson? I think marriage is great. If you find the right person, I mean, there's nothing better than having your person, your soulmate, and being married to that person. So I don't knock the institution of marriage or the idea of marriage. I think that it's good for most people. But just because it's good for most people doesn't mean it's for everyone. And we're living in a different time and era. I mean, I guess if you're extremely religious, you would think that everyone needs to be married, because that's part of the traditional religious uh, doctrines. But even then, I mean, there's a lot of people in that wrote scriptures. I mean, who was Buddha married to? Who was Jesus married to? And no, I'm not comparing myself to a Buddha or a Jesus or anything like that. But I'm just saying that there is a lot of people throughout history who wrote books and never had kids or never got married. So this idea that it's for everyone. No, is it best for most people? Yes, I think so. Water Tiger says, "Yeah, I've never been married either. We're a small minority. It's a growing minority nowadays. There's some countries like Japan. It's very common to find people who've never been married. Singapore, it's very common. I mean, here in Asia or in Europe in particular, you'll find a lot of people in your age demographic of say 30 to 40 that have never been married or have kids. Uh, in America, it's still very common for people to have kids, especially Latin America. Here in the Philippines, for example, there are a lot of people have kids. Like some people have like 7 to 10 kids, but then there's people that don't have kids. So um, it just depends. Um, top 5 friendly countries to visit if you're an American. Great question. Wow, this should be a question on Island Hopper TV. But top 5 countries for Americans right now. I think Philippines is a good one. They like Philippines, or Philippines likes Americans because they have this idea that America will always protect them. And I went to Leyte. For those of you who know about Douglas MacArthur, not General George S. Patton, but MacArthur. MacArthur has this statue. You remember the picture of MacArthur when he came up onto the water in Philippines, and he was wearing the glasses, and he was walking through the ocean on one of those. He was walking onto the beach on one of those vehicles that drop you off at the water for uh, ocean for an assault onto the land. And he said, "To this I shall return." So it's a famous quote from Douglas MacArthur. He loved the Philippines. He used to live here. He was commandant or commander, and he did most of it from an island in the Philippines for most of that war until Truman ordered him to evacuate down to Australia. But MacArthur, uh, he spent like I want to say like 20 plus years in the Philippines, and he's like a hero here. And they have a statue it's called the Leyte Landing of General MacArthur and the American generals who came on the shore after finally defeating the Japanese. And you know, here in the Philippines is a great place World War II because there's a lot of history here. The Bataan Death March, the Battle of Leyte, and I dive into these different histories. In Manila, in downtown Manila, they have an area called Intramuros, and that's where the Japanese were. That it changed hands. At one point, it was a Spanish fort. Then, in World War II, it became a Japanese fort, and then it became command central for the United States when they took back the Philippines. But there was a point in time where the Japanese were really whooping some butt, and that was when MacArthur had to evacuate. I want to say it was around like 1941 or 1942, maybe 1943. MacArthur had to get out of the Philippines because it was too dangerous. And that was when they captured a lot of American and Filipino soldiers, and they did the Bataan Death March. But Yeah, there's a lot of history, and but because of all of that, Philippines looks up to the United States as some country that protects them and has put their money where their mouth is with that. So Philippines is pretty good for Americans. Um, Thailand, just in general, is pretty good. Costa Rica is still good. Panama has a love-hate relationship with America, but generally speaking, you should be treated pretty good in Panama. Um, I was accosted a little bit in Mexico City at one point. I was in Mexico City during a feminist march. There was a feminist march going on, and it was the women were protesting against the men in Mexico. And I was just so happened to be there. I wasn't there because of it or anything like that. And we were just walking around. And the women were violently like destroying the city. Like they were uh, beating the windows, knocking out windows of cars, and all this stuff just because out of anger. And some local Hispanic guy comes up, Mexican guy comes up to me. He's like, "Oh, I hate Americans! I hate Americans! You Americans, get the heck out of my country!" And I look back on it, and what I think he was saying was that he was blaming us Americans for this feminist movement. So he was blaming. So there's a lot of countries or places in particular who blame the United States propaganda or political movements for instability or problems in their country. And so I would say, because SMG asked that earlier, and that was about 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago in Mexico City. That was like the last incident like that I can remember. But yeah, that happened in Mexico City. Um, Someone says, "I'm 31. I'm not prioritizing marriage. Just doesn't seem worth it unless you want kids. That's how I see it." Yeah, I think if you have kids, it becomes almost an obligation to be married because you owe it to your children. I would say it's definitely, but nowadays it doesn't seem like it's like I have this one girl. She always asks me if I want to get married to her, and I'm like, "Why? Why? What? What's in it? What's the benefit? What's the benefit? Because like, why would we get married? We're friends. I mean, I don't see benefit in it. I was trying to figure it out. Like, I was going through my mind, what's the benefit? What's the benefit? you know. So I was like, okay, if she doesn't want kids, she doesn't want kids. So you don't want kids. Well, then why would we even get married? Because I don't know. Shalon says, "I hope you find a lady to love. You are a nice man and deserve to be happy." I think everyone deserves to be deserves the opportunity to find their happiness. Yeah, but again, everyone's got their own little thing that they like, their peace, their happiness, their happy places, and all that. Driving and delivering. I've never been married. I look at my married friends and wonder how the f they do it. It seems insanely stressful. That is so true. I see people. I'm like, what is going on here? Why are you dealing with that? And they I don't know if they're happy or not. I don't know. But again, it's not up to me. I mean, everyone's going to have to do their own thing. That's why, I'd say if you find someone that you really care about, do it. You know, that's right. Everyone has their own path in life, says Water Tiger. Most people seem unhappy married. Just my observation. Yeah, I mean, not everyone. I think my brother and sister, who are both married with kids, they seem pretty content. Marriage is really good for kids and family. I agree. My parents are married 38 years, happy life. Yeah, I mean, my grandparents were married for like a long time, you know. And when my grandfather passed, my grandma couldn't live without him, so there was that. Um, Mr. Judy, I have a bunch of family in the Philippines, not safe for Americans, and very corrupt government. Uh, where did you hear that? What did you hear? Where did you hear that? I don't know about that. I've heard about some of that. I guess you could say the latter part of it, but unsafe. What part? I've been, I don't know, maybe like 20 or 30 islands here. I just went to Malapascua, Cebu. I was on Camotes Islands. So Camotes and Malapascua, those are like provinces. People are all friendly, didn't have any problems. I mean, the biggest thing that I was on the lookout for was stray dogs the whole time. um, Here in Cebu, yeah, it's a city. They have, I wouldn't like necessarily walk around dark alleyways at nighttime. Same with Manila. But in the province, I mean, I feel like it's quite safe, and I feel like the people are extremely friendly. Whether they're looking at me as a money symbol or what, I mean, either way, I always joke around with people. I always make conversation with people, and my whole thing is I try to laugh with the people. So I always go around, I ask questions, talk to them, and everyone seems like they're very open minded to a laugh or a giggle or something like that. Um, but I'd be curious to, you know, hear what exactly you're talking about. Schmonsequence says American politics are poisonous here and abroad. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of the disdain or the hatred towards Americans stems from the American politics. What they see on TV, they see that they think that it's a dangerous country. I've had so many people come up to me and ask me how dangerous America is. So there's this like media propaganda abroad. I don't know who's behind it all. If it's Russians, if it's Chinese, or what, but there's a lot of propaganda, or if it's just naturally occurring stuff that's posted on social media and TikTok that they see. But they see the looting. I've had to respond to this a couple times. People are always saying, "Yeah, well, our country, we don't have people looting. We don't have people going into our stores and breaking the windows and going in there and stealing everything in sight. We don't have that going on here, like you guys, you savages, or something like that." I'm like, how do I respond to that? I'm like, well, yeah, that happens in some areas, but it's not really happening. But I guess they see videos from San Francisco and they're like, they're a lot of people are baffled. Like, have had to answer for California not prosecuting criminals unless they steal more than $1,000 worth of uh, goods or whatever. And people overseas can't justify that. They think that's just ridiculous. So they look at us as like this really weird minded group of people. The guns, they don't understand why we have to have guns. I guess someone tried to assassinate Trump again today. So they look at that as like, you know, dangerous. I told him, I said, I've never seen anyone get shot in the United States. I mean, I've never actually seen a shooting in all the time I've lived there, but it happens. In some areas, it happens more than others. Um, Big cities aren't safe here, but plenty of safe suburbs and rural areas, of course. Yeah, that's why I tell them. I said most of the United States is, for the most part, very safe. It's a very safe place in most places, especially in the rural parts. I mean, same here in the Philippines, in the province. It's for the most part safe. In the big cities, it's a little bit dangerous. I think Manila is the most densely populated city in the world right now. Most densely populated. That's it's a lot of people. I mean, in one area, and you feel it when you're going on the streets and it's traffic and all that. Um, Mark says, if you find your soulmate, it's great to share your life with someone you love. I've been married for 30 years and my wife is my best friend. Yeah, that in those cases, yeah. I mean, you wouldn't want to take that away from someone who shares that and has that in their life. And you can't, there's no one who's going to say that that's toxic or bad or anything like that. So it's nothing but good. And if anything, it's a blessing for you and your wife to have found someone like that. So that's great. Rick says Phoenix has a lot of road rage. Yeah, like if you look at road rage, for example, just the subject of road rage in Asia, Indonesia, Philippines in particular, right now while I'm here, lots of honking. Like someone will cut someone off and they'll honk. And in the US, if you do that, you have to watch the person next to you, see if their reaction is going to be hostile, with whether it's a gun or they want to stop the car, get out and try and confront you. Here in the Philippines, people just honk, they lay on their horn, but they don't want to get out of they're not going to get out of the car and start trying to box you up or shoot you or stab you. Same with in Indonesia. We're talking some of the worst traffic in the world. Whereas in like Phoenix, you lay your hand on the horn like that and you do that to the wrong person, it can escalate quite quickly. um yeah, I mean, there's countless videos. So just I would say people are more on edge in the United States probably than any other country in the world. I can't think of another country in the world, literally, where I've seen people more on edge than the US. The US is probably the most on edge country that I've ever seen. The second I get off a plane, whether I'm coming in from Europe or I'm coming in from Asia, the second I arrive into LAX or SFO or Seattle, I'm instantly around like fidgety, anxious people. And I'm like, yep, back in the US. High blood pressure, high anxiety. And I don't know what it is that causes it, but why are people so uppity? You don't see that here. I mean, people, if anything, I'm still trying to get out of my uppity because I'm an American. I come from that world of uppityness and anxious. So I come here and people are moving slow, and I'm like, let's go. Come on, people. I'm like, I don't know if I have enough patience to walk behind this slow person on this escalator. So I'll be like, I won't like try to be rude about it, but I'll be like, I got to get around this person. I'll be in a hurry to get around them. And that happens quite commonly out here. But in the US, I don't have any problems walking around the cities or the airports because people are always in a hurry, just like me. Over here, I have to slow it down a bit. And that's everywhere. We got to slow it down everywhere. It's Nick says, for someone well traveled like you, Jeff, that's a crazy statement, but plenty others say the same thing about what the US being the most anxious. It's an observation. Yeah, it's an observation. I mean, most people would probably say that too. I mean, a lot of people, they hear me say things like that and they're like, oh, you're anti-American, you hate America. I'm like, hold on, let's talk about this. Number one is all of my money and my banks and my investments are in the US. So it benefits me nothing to see America go down. If anything, the only reason I'm complaining is because I'm trying to get America to go back up. I want to see us go up because my passport's US. Everyone hears me, knows me. When I'm foreign, everything is associated with the US. So the US reputation is something that that I'm attached to. So it does me no good to, badmouth my family name or badmouth my country or anything like that. I'll complain in the sense that I want to see things improve. So I raise awareness and attention to these things. For example, this conversation about China, because here in the Philippines, there's a bit of a rift over the Spratly and Parcel Islands, and China's claims them, Philippines claims some of them, Vietnam claims some, Malaysia claims some, but China wants them all. And there's a little bit of hostility right now between the countries, and either way, the conversation went towards what happens if a war breaks out and you're an American expat here in the Philippines. Those are something you'd have to think about, right? How are you going to be treated and all that. But either way, it's food for thought, right? But either way, I mean, in that situation, I have to look at it from a pragmatic approach. I have to take a very analytical approach because if I decide to move to the Philippines or if I decide to move to Australia or Singapore or Thailand or who knows where, Japan, Hong Kong, I've got to take all these things into consideration about geopolitics. And so I have a small platform. I have a very limited voice and outreach, but I have tons of experience. I have tons of boots on the ground, real world experience, being that I've spent so much time over here. And, I've spent more time in Asia. I don't know, man. I've spent a lot of time in Asia. I've been to almost every country except for like Laos and Myanmar. So, I mean, if you look at all the countries, I've been to all of them: Taiwan, Japan, China, Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia. Oh, I've never been to Brunei. Either way. And I've spent months, like I've been in Philippines at least, 2 months. So that's a lot of time going around. There's a lot of times I'll get on the boats and I'm the only foreigner, literally. I'm like a Filipino. Well, I'm not a Filipino, but I'm with the Filipinos. And so taking all these things into consideration, the American reputation is something that I care about. People always will say, "Oh, who cares what people think about you?" That's the answer that people always like to give. Who cares what other people think? Well, when you're in a foreign country, yeah, I mean, the way you're perceived your nationality's perception can influence how you're treated and a lot of different things. Thanks to 108 people who smashed up the likes. If you guys want me to keep going, smash up the likes. Someone says, seems like you're not passionate about AZ anymore. I am passionate about AZ, but I've lost my passion for living in the US. And the main reason that I've lost my passion for living there is so expensive. It's too expensive. It's too expensive. I mean, it's the amount of money that it takes to really like enjoy yourself in the US. It's beyond what I make. I get more value outside of the United States than I do in the United States. So I guess you could say I have more of a passion for value, for value and quality of life and cost of living than I do for being married to any particular destination on the planet. Probably I'm not married, but does that make sense? So it's like there's that guy, Nomad Capitalist. He says, go where you're treated best. Go where you're treated best. Why would you go where you're not treated very well? I mean, for those of you who live in the US right now, whether you're living in Arizona or North Carolina or New York or Boston or California, where's everyone live in this chat? Like, I don't know where everyone lives, but if you tell me, then I'll know where most of you are living. But for me, I would say that in the US, no, you don't get value. And I went all across the US even here recently. I went to North Carolina, I went to Boston, I went to Florida, Philly, I went to New York City, DC, obviously Texas. It's all the same. It's all the same. It's expensive. Like I was saying earlier, I have expat friends who live here and they talk about how much they're living on over here, like less than $1,000, no, like less than $1,500 a month. They're living pretty good with a moped and a girlfriend or whatever they got. And they go back to the US, their rent's going to be $1,500. All their money just goes straight into rent. So why would that person go back to the US? They're living off Social Security. So, I mean, yeah, I know you're living in Arizona, and Arizona is a great state. A lot of beautiful places there. I love the Arizona countryside. I look forward to going back and barbecuing and camping in Arizona always, going out into the wilderness, southern Arizona, northern Arizona, the Mogollon Rim. Just beautiful Arizona. It's a beautiful place, very rare. Not many places on earth are like Arizona. So it's a very rare, beautiful place. So I, of course, have admiration for it. But the cost of living is extreme. I don't know how much do you think you need to make per month to live a high quality life where you are living comfortably in Arizona? What would you guys say, or in the US in general, what would you say you need to be making? I would say it's anywhere between $8,000 to $10,000 per month to be living comfortably on the low end in Arizona. And with that would include, a new vehicle, a new modern vehicle, a new modern home, ability to save money and invest, because that's important. You have to be saving some sort of money and investing in something for your future, because if you're not doing that, we've seen what that does to people. You have to be doing that. Okay, 6,000 minimum. For me, it was 8 to 10,000. I don't know how I came up with that number, but it just felt like anything less. Oh, taxes. They're going to take out of that 8 to 10,000. The IRS is going to take 20% of that right off the top, at least. So that's why that's another factor. So it really does. Like if it's 8,000, then it really becomes 6,000. You get what I'm saying? Someone says do less spending. Oh, of course you could do less spending. I mean, Americans, including myself, have an Amazon addiction. Friday night, Saturday night, if we're not doing anything, we'll be on Amazon. For some reason, we just spent $121 and we don't even know what we bought, but it's coming in the mail in the next few days. I'm speaking figuratively, but there's a lot of people who do that. I mean, grocery shopping, all that stuff. Let's see. 10 Toes Down MMA says 10 to 15,000 a month easy. Yeah. $7,000 per month easy. Jilly says, I live in Central Oregon, want to move to Parker, hoping Trump is president, says Jilly. Seattle for now, seriously looking at AZ, love AZ. My resources are being a quarter and most of my family activity trying to get to the U.S. I personally had a family member who held a high-ranking position in the government who has what Mr. Jared Lee. I don't know why I read that one. I should have read through that, but that was a wild comment. I don't even know what you said. I don't even know what you said, honestly. Firefly Odyssey says paying taxes on $17,000 is wild. Yeah, that person they made like 17,500 and they paid the IRS 2,500. I was like, dude, they really needed your 2,500 to send it to Ukraine or what? Is that what they needed it for? I mean, what do they need your money for? You're like barely scraping by. Would I live in Florida? Yeah, I'd live in Florida. Florida or Arizona would probably be the only places in America that I would consider. I don't think there's right now the fastest growing state in the country is Utah. So that's something to take into consideration. Nick says we are pretty spoiled in this country. Let's be honest. But when houses are 400K range and that's cheap, now that's scary. Yeah, we were looking back on it. We were spoiled in 2018, 2017, 2018. We were pretty spoiled in the U.S. We were pretty darn spoiled. We didn't even know it at the time. But the last 3 or 4 years have been a wake-up call for a lot of us. It really has been because things are high priced. California All-Stars says Utah is very similar to Arizona. Actually used to be a part of Utah. What used to be? Arizona used to be a part of Utah? Is that what you just said? Let me see that. I don't remember Arizona ever being part of Utah. There might have been a part of Arizona that used to be. I know that there was the Gadsden Purchase down in southern Arizona. And then maybe in northern Arizona, there was an area that used to be part of Utah. But as a whole, the state was not. My parents bought their first home back for $11,000 in the late 50s. Yeah, I mean, but when you say that, we have to give context. How much what's the equivalent of $11,000 in the 50s? Let's type that in. What was $11,000? How much was $11,000 worth in 1950 in the U.S.? So that'll give us a real $132,000. Okay, so basically, if they bought it for $11,000, that was the value of $132,000. So yeah, there has been a significant increase. That's crazy. So home prices in Arizona used to go for around $132,000, basically. Well, $11,000, which has changed a bit, right? Bass says, ain't even that hot, bruh. Well, in September, it's not as hot as it was in, say, July. Would you guys say that Arizona was hotter or average this summer than usual? I know that I asked my dad. He said he feels like it's getting hotter, and he works outside in the heat for the last 40 years. Because ask me what he does. He's a stonemason. He's a mason. That means all the blocks, rocks, concrete. That's what he does. He's a stonemason. Stonemasons don't work inside. If you ever seen my dad's hands, they're basically like gloves. They're very calloused and beat up from all the concrete and moving rocks. It's like shaking someone's hand with gloves on. But I mean, he would know. That's someone who would know. But then again, it's like maybe, Dad, you're feeling it more because you're getting older. I thought about that, but like, oh, it's getting hotter. It's getting hotter. Rick says hotter. Okay. Bass says I work outside as well. This year wasn't must hotter than the past. Where do you live in Arizona? Yeah, I mean, I think anytime it's 110 or 112 or 114 degrees, everyone's going to say it's hot. It's getting hotter. I mean, that's it's really hard to rationalize with 114 degrees. Like anytime it's 114 degrees, I don't think anyone's going to be like, "Oh yeah, just another walk in the park," right? But I mean, if you look at the data here, I mean, history. Uh, let's see what the data says. America's hottest city is having a surge in deaths. Skyrocketing temperatures are colliding with a lack of planning in Phoenix that is contributing to a rise in heat related deaths. Um, Relentless heat led to 645 deaths last year in Maricopa County, uh, which is 1,000% increase in over the last 10 years. Are we still in the dog days of summer? The dog days of summer are heating up, sending millions of Americans inside. Arizona is no stranger to heat, especially its capital, Phoenix. Um, there was a bit of data that said that this year, so they broke the record several times. June 6th, July 5th, July 118 degrees. August 16th, 116 degrees. That's for the daily record. Summer 24 was also the hottest summer on record in Phoenix, breaking the previous record set in 2023. So, Bass, what do you have to say about that? I mean, if you have data that shows that this year wasn't the hottest year on record, show me, because that's what it says, right? Um, Nighttime temps above 90 are insane. Yeah. Above 90. Oh man. At night. Good thing they have AC. I mean, that's one thing Arizona does really good is central cooling. Central cooling is a great thing. Major power outages. Oh, a major power outage. Yeah, I mean, a major power outage in Arizona would be a catastrophe. Like what happened in Dallas a few years ago during that snow. If they had that in the summertime in Arizona, thankfully we have a nuclear power plant. At this point in time, I feel like nuclear power plants are the most efficient form of power and energy that are known to humans. Really, I mean, nuclear power is pretty strong, and Arizona has that. They can do a lot with a nuclear power plant, actually. Palos Verdes. Amanda says, my husband would agree with you. He works outside doing asphalt. Yeah, I bet. I mean, he feels it. You can't, in July, you can't work outside in direct heat for any more than a few hours. I mean, I don't know how you could do asphalt in the summertime in July in Phoenix. I don't even think it's possible. I don't know how he would do it. Seriously. It feels like fall in the early mornings in Bend, Oregon. I dread winters. Give me heat. I need heat. Yeah. When it's cold and frigid in Oregon or in Montana in February, you're like, look, Arizona, 118 degrees, give it to me. I'll take it. But the second you get to that 118 degrees and it's been a week straight where it's over 112, you're like, uh-oh, I don't know about this actually. It makes me feel lethargic, the high heat. Yeah, the high heat it takes your breath away, right? Yeah, be a snowbird. You could easily be a snowbird inside the state of Arizona. Go from Phoenix to Show Low. Go from Phoenix to the White Mountains. Go from Phoenix to Flagstaff. Go from Phoenix to, Prescott. There's a few places you can snowbird. I would aim for the White Mountains. White Mountains are a little bit further away, though. Flagstaff would probably be Flagstaff or Prescott are a lot closer to Phoenix. Like we're talking like 2 hours apart. You could easily get. You could live in Anthem. You could live in North Phoenix. You could live in Mesa. You could live in Mesa and easily get up to the White Mountains, or you could live in North Phoenix and easily get up to Prescott, probably within less than 2 hours. So you could essentially possibly live in Prescott in the summertime and work in Phoenix if you don't mind a 2 hour commute each way. But you'd have to love paying for those gas prices. 10 Toes Down says, yeah, that, hey, did you guys see the Cardinals game today? Cardinals absolutely whooped the Los Angeles Rams. I'm surprised nobody talked about that yet. But Kyler Murray finally connected with Marvin Harrison Jr. for 2 touchdowns, unlike week 1. Kyler actually played a good game. That was good. Yeah, that's why Northern Arizona is the goal for me. I can do 90 to 100 a day, no problem, and it gets cold up there. Prescott in Payson is ideal for me. Yeah, Payson seems to be getting hotter, though. Like, I feel like the fires, those big fires that Payson gets are also a problem. Yeah, Saints destroyed the Cowboys today. Saints are looking real good. Derek Carr is balling out right now. White Mountains are 3 hours. Yeah, White Mountains they're definitely about an hour further than Prescott from Phoenix. You got to go around the Mogollon. But yeah, the fires, I mean, you have to wonder how much those fires are impacting the heat too. I mean, it's known that you can plant more trees and bring down the temperatures in areas. And some of those fires that happened over the last few years, I think in the last decade, there's been some real big fires. I think a few years ago, we had a heck of a fire. This year, we didn't really have too bad of a fire season. I don't remember a bad fire season last year. I mean, we've had fires, but nothing like where we had like out of control, horrible fires. You know, they say wet winters and dry summers lead to fire season. Yeah, I know about the Diamondbacks. They were on a roll, but they've been getting crushed by Milwaukee. Did they win tonight? A lot of people were. I love the Diamondbacks. They've done a great job. But they won today. They needed that one. Man, what is up with our pitching though? 11-10. We've been giving up some serious runs to Milwaukee. Milwaukee's got some bats, man. Our pitching staff needs to wake up. Thankfully, we've got the Rockies next, so we'll breeze through that series. But we didn't do too good against Milwaukee. The Mets are heating up too, and we haven't played very good against the Mets. But yeah, the Diamondbacks are great this year. Better. Yeah. Even the Superstition Mountain was on fire. Yeah, that was recently. Superstitions were on fire. Thanks to 128 people who liked the video. Do you guys ever come over and watch Island Hopper TV or the Island Hopper TV Travel Highlights channel? The little small channel. If you guys wanted to see some of the videos that I make from these areas. A lot of islands. Island Hopper TV has a lot of good videos if you like travel, but the small channel, Island Hopper TV Travel Highlights, and the Hotels channel are pretty good if you guys also like travel. I'm still upset with the Diamondbacks beating the Yankees in the World Series. I was not upset about that at all. That was the best day to be a sports fan in Phoenix history. That was the best day ever for being a sports fan. Because, you know, when you win that's the only like title we've ever won aside from like University of Arizona Wildcats winning the college basketball national championship. That was like the second best feeling. But Cardinals have never won the Super Bowl. We almost won it in Tampa Bay against the Steelers. I thought Kurt Warner and Larry Fitzgerald were going to do it then. Nope. So we're still waiting on the Super Bowl. Suns almost won the NBA Finals. They took a 2-0 lead against Milwaukee, and then we gave it up. And then we ended up losing 4-2. So we've never won an NBA championship, but we did win a World Series, and we lost our hockey team. Are we still losing our hockey team? I mean, they still kind of call it the Arizona Coyotes, but they're supposed to be like almost a foot and a half out the door to Utah. I think they're called the Utah Coyotes at this point. No, I didn't know they're called Cardones. So you're saying, well, not all Saguaro. I think those Cardones are in the Baja of Mexico, yeah, in northern Mexico. Yep, we lost the Coyotes. And then the guy who owned the Coyotes, Alex Morales or whatever, he was saying he wants to bring back a hockey team. I'm like, if we bring back a hockey team, he will not be involved. That guy was like, he was literally responsible for like the demise of the Arizona Coyotes hockey franchise. So that guy talking about bringing hockey back to the desert, the only person who can do it that I would trust is Jerry Colangelo or Colangelo. That's it. Yep, the Browns of hockey. Well, if they're the Browns of hockey, then that would mean they're the Ravens, Baltimore Ravens. Gary Snowbird. I've been a snowbird since 2008. Summers in Reno, and then back to Arizona of the winter, heading back October 1st. Oh yeah, you never feel the pain in Arizona, so you're just walking around Arizona like la di da di la di da di. You'll look at the people and be like, man, how did you survive those summers? But if you're up in Reno, I don't know how far up in Reno you are, because if you're up in Reno, you could be towards Lake Tahoe or you could be literally in Reno. But Reno in the wintertime gets super cold. As of yesterday, the fire at the Superstition Mountain was 0% contained. 0%? Dang. Yeah, can't believe we don't have them here anymore. It was devastating. I could almost walk to the arena here in Tempe. That would have been great if they went to Tempe. I think all the teams need to be around Tempe. Like I missed the Cardinals being in Tempe. I don't want them to play in Sun Devil Stadium, but I would like to see the Cardinals. You know, where the Cubs play at Hohokam, that area, they could build a beautiful stadium right there along Rio Salado. I don't know why they don't. I don't that would be the best place for the Cardinals. You know, State Farm Stadium is almost 20 years old at this point. Typical lifespan for one of those stadiums is 30 years. So we'll see. I mean, get the Cardinals out of Glendale though. That place, we don't need to be out in Glendale. That is not the best place for us. Do they cancel any games when the heat in Phoenix is really bad? What heat? The heat for the Diamondbacks? Diamondbacks games, you know, they play indoors. They need to replace the entire air conditioning system in there because fans were complaining, especially when it's sold out. It's too hot. Inside the Arizona Cardinals stadium, it gets hot, but it's not too hot. And they don't play games in August much unless it's a preseason. I've been to a Arizona State Sun Devils game in September when it was 100 degrees inside the stadium, you know, because they have the temperature. They were playing like San Diego State. That was when Jalen was named, the kid that won the Heisman Trophy. Jalen, he was the Arizona State quarterback for a while. He ended up going to LSU and winning the Heisman. I was like, dang, we had the Heisman on our team. But yeah, I've been down in Arizona State. They'll play. They play when it's 100 degrees at night. Yeah, first 18 seasons at ASU. Was it 18 seasons? Was it 18? Maybe so. I think the first game I ever went to was when Steve Berline was our quarterback. You guys remember? You remember Steve Berline? And then the glory years came when we had Jake the Snake, and we beat the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know how we did it, 19-0. That was unbelievable. Hey, Drunken Chef, long time no see. College teams play outside in Arizona. It's the Wildcats and the Sun Devils, but no pro sports play outdoors in the summer. Hey, Princess Mish. Thanks to everyone who smashed up the likes. We've been going for about an hour and 23 minutes. It's been a long time. Yes, you're right, Nick. I can talk about something else, but I think we're at the end of the show here. I'm doing good. I'm in Philippines Hope to see you guys over on Island Hopper TV. We'll see if you guys come over. Do you ever hear of anyone seeing Bigfoot, Sasquatch in the rural areas of grids in Arizona? Some call it the Mogollon Monster. Oh, that's a good question. This is always one of those fun subjects. No. I'm almost convinced that if there was a Sasquatch or a abominable snowman or Mogollon Monster, it does not exist anymore. It's a fun folklore, but with this day and age, with everyone having a cell phone and all this stuff and so many people and population density, if one of these things actually existed, it would have been uncovered. We would have at least seen a corpse at some point. Someone would have had to have filmed it. Every time we see any sort of video, it's usually uncovered or debunked as a fake. And so I've been in the Philippines for a month now. It's typhoon season. They just had a big typhoon, and I'm waiting on mail to come from the U.S. My brother's sending me some mail. Do you think skinwalkers are real skinwalkers? Remind me what a skinwalker is. In Hawaii, when I lived in Hawaii, they used to talk about these people called menehune, which were like small people, and the big tall Hawaiians, because Hawaiians used to be like some Hawaiians used to be like 7 feet tall. Like if you go into like Waimea or the Valley of the Kings, into those valleys over there, they said in some of the caves they have skeletons that were like really tall Hawaiians. Like King Kamehameha was a very tall man, but the tall Hawaiians were very scared of these people they called the menehune. And they were kind of like what I think you were calling the Skywalkers. But do I think that these Mogollon Monster or Sasquatch? I don't think so. Now, the one that everyone always talks about is aliens, and that's a conversation that may be relative or relevant to the situation. Spirits or demons that can transform into people or creatures and mimic noises to attract people to them. Oh, I have no idea. To the best of my knowledge, no, I don't think that those exist. Now, someone said chupacabra. Yeah, I've seen chupacabra. I don't know if it's a dog with mange, a coyote with mange, but I've seen what appears to be a definite chupacabra. But are they as ferocious as they were made out to be? No. Just a dog with mange or rabies, really. Coyote. What's the most remote area in Arizona you would move to? I love Blue Arizona, but not much infrastructure there. What is Blue Arizona? Yeah. Southeastern Arizona over by the Chiricahuas portal. I think it's called Star Valley or yeah. Go out there towards the Chiricahuas, past Bisbee. That's remote. I live there. Hey Val, nice to see you. I used to listen to Art Bell all the time. Is that Art Bell? Is that Bob Bose Bell? You guys remember Bob Bose Bell? I'm friends with his son, Tommy Bell. What's the most remote area in Arizona that I would live? I would say, yeah, it's got to be Portal. I don't know. Portal. Southern Arizona. As you can see, I really like Southern Arizona. Have I ever been to Big River, California? No. Where's Big River? Thank you, Princess Michelle. Yeah, I'll see you guys over on Island Hopper TV. I'm gonna take off for now and call it a day at an hour and 28 minutes. And we'll see you on the next one. Turn on the post notifications, turn on the notifications, and you can get notified for the next one. Yes, I am a big fan of Southern Arizona. See y'all. Thank you.